All right, thanks for voting in that poll, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now and then share it with our audience here. So this is our poll today. The question was, what is the biggest challenge in trying to prospect your business? Our poll answers, 49% was getting people on the phone, 41% was keeping my contact engaged with me as a prospect, and 10% were gaining a second contract. So there's some interesting results there, and should give us something to talk about while we're here at the webinar. Let me go ahead and hide that for you, and I will turn our presentation over to Mr. Robert Zinsser. Before we get started, though, I'm going to do a couple of housekeeping things. As I said, sorry, I didn't say this before. I'm saying it now. The webinar is being recorded. You'll get a link from the GoToMeeting software telling you where you can download. They're giving the URL where you can download this. You'll also be able to download the PowerPoint files, and you'll also be able to download an MP3, which will also be on our iTunes podcast site, so you can listen to that on the go. Please feel free to ask questions through the chat interface during the session. We're going to save about 10 or 15 minutes at the end for a Q&A. Even if we don't get to your question, I'm going to save these for both Seth and Bob, and we'll pass this along to them so they can answer them at their own time if we don't get to them while we're on the air here. And yeah, we want this to be as interactive as possible, so thank you for attending. And let me introduce our guest today, and our first guest here is Mr. Seth Oxhandler. He is the CEO of Cool Cat Inc. Hello, Seth, and welcome.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me here. It's always a pleasure to be a part of this forum.
All right, thanks. And Seth, you're coming to us from your bunker in North Florida there, right?
Yeah, well, I'm actually dialed into the webinar from the most secure part of the largest data center in Northeast Florida, Southeast Georgia, where we operate our managed service practice, our private cloud and co-location services. We have 350 square feet of raised floor space here at Colo 5 in Jacksonville.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Seth. And our presenter today is Mr. Robert Zinsser. He's the president of Get in the Game SE. He's a professional he's a sales professional who's been optimizing organizational efficiency and creating positive workplaces. Welcome, Robert.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for some of us. But thank you for having me, and I look forward to sharing some information, hopefully providing you with some ideas here this morning.
Okay, well, I've turned things over to Robert. I'm going to put my phone on mute because if you don't know, I'm actually in Scotland, and sometimes people play bagpipes out the window. So I'm going to turn this over. I'll talk to you gentlemen here, but as I said, please feel to ask questions. If they're pertinent to what Bob or Seth are talking about that moment, I'll go ahead and jump in so we can keep everything moving and exciting and live. And so without further ado, I'm going to go quiet and turn things over to you, Bob.
Okay. Thank you. Everybody is seeing the screen. Sales is a contact sport, a little bit of play on words. My company, Get in the Game Southeast, again, I'm a sports fanatic, so that's kind of where that comes from. My wife tells me that the only thing we watch on TV, and people will ask her, did you see so-and-so show? And she says, was it on ESPN? If it wasn't on ESPN, I didn't see it. So I am a sports fanatic. It's the only reality TV that I see any value in. So I started my company over 3.5 years ago, and I work with organizations of all sizes and all different types of market. And basically, not to be too general, but on their sales issues. What are their sales issues? And there could be a number of things. We're going to talk about some ways that, some things that I see from a trending standpoint, some statistics of what's going on in today's business-to-business world. Quite frankly, it even has application to the business-to-consumer world. So let's get started. When we say it's a contact sport, what do you mean by that? Well, you have to make contact with someone when you're marketing your business or your products or services. So that's a given. You actually have to connect with somebody. I know a lot's done over the internet and through email and voicemail, but you eventually have to contact somebody. And it could be on the phone, but in some cases it's face-to-face. So we're going to kind of address all of those things. But how do you go about doing that? How do you get in touch with people? And of course, our poll said one of the biggest challenges is getting people on the phone, and that should be the easiest part, but it is difficult, and I see it all the time. I experience it, and we're going to talk a little bit about, hopefully, ways that you can utilize to get people to return your phone calls or to respond to your emails, or both. So we will address that today. Then once I make contact, what do I do then? I've caught the bear. Now what do I do with it? And then how do you keep contact? You make initial contact, but unfortunately, as I've told people in sales, people aren't necessarily ready to buy when we're ready to sell them something. So we need to come up with a way, and we'll talk about that, top of mind awareness. How do you stay in front of your prospects and clients versus just kind of hoping and checking in with them every once in a while? And what if this lasts for months or years? How are you going to do that? You have to be persistent, and we'll look at some statistics on buying patterns that people that are going on in the business world today.
Yeah, perseverance.
So you might say
pays off.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What we're going to address today is how do I connect with people? And we're going to get into a little bit of detail, but again, we've got a limited amount of time, and I want to make sure I cover all the material, and I'd be happy to follow up with you on one-to-one. I have my contact information at the end, and we'd have to have a conversation to kind of help you along this way. So we're going to do a high level in all of these areas. How do I get in front of and stay in front of my prospects with value? And that's the key word, with value. How do you prepare for the interaction? We talked a little bit about that. Establishing a sales process, and this is something that I've been working with for many years in my 30-plus year career in sales. I was one of the early people in it. I actually worked with a gentleman who said, sales isn't a process. You just keep calling on somebody and wearing them down until they say yes. Well, guess what? That hasn't worked in a long time, and it's certainly not going to work today. So you have to, if anything, not anything real formal that you have to follow step by step by step. It's just being aware of where you are in that process. And then objectives for advancing the sale. Anytime you have contact with someone, I would suggest you have to have an objective of, I'm making contact, whether it's a phone call, a face-to-face, certainly, even an email. How am I advancing the sale? And then generating some effective messaging, because there's a lot of noise out there, and we'll see statistically what these business people are faced with on a daily basis. You've got to be different in your messaging. You've got to be very effective, because just calling people and saying, hi, my name is, can we talk, isn't going to get it. I understand we've probably got a lot of different individual situations, and I see them with my clients, different ways that you're engaging with people. It could be phone contact, and that could be both inbound and outbound. So how are we, I just want to identify that these are situations, and these tips and tricks and techniques that I'm going to share with you today will apply to all of these. And of course, you have the good old-fashioned face-to-face sales call. That's if you can get one when you get to that point. Cold sales calls. You're walking into an establishment. I work with an advertising company that was selling advertising in their magazine, local paper as well as some regional papers. But they're making cold calls. That's a different way. How you can use these techniques in that situation. And then, of course, the good old-fashioned networking. You may be generating business through networking. But again, a little bit different, but there's still some application to the material that we'll cover here today. All right, connecting with your prospect. How do I do that? This is real basic, but I would suggest that, and I work with some material called Smart Conversations, which is a Stephen Covey program here in the United States and has been around for over 30 years. This is very powerful. We're dealing with people. You go into a situation, or you call people on the phone, and you immediately start spouting all the wonderful things that your company does and the benefits and features and who you are and how long you've been doing this. Guess what? They don't care about that. They already know what the features and benefits of your product are, and I'll show you some statistics along that line. But I would suggest if you take some time to connect with the individual before you get into the content of your call, find some common ground. In a face-to-face call, ask the gentleman or lady, the individual, how long have you been with this company? What took you into this position? Did you start with this company and work up throughout? Just try to find some common ground, and you don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I think it's time well spent that you find some common ground. Sometimes I ask people, where did you grow up? Are you from Jacksonville, Florida originally? I've been around the country and lived in different places to find some common ground, and all of a sudden you're talking about the same restaurant that you went to. There's a connection. your approach, personalize it. Don't just talk generalities. Well, with most of my customers, I deal with this, or I've provided this solution to many of my other customers. From your prospect standpoint, now you're throwing me into a bucket where everybody's the same. They're not the same. Everybody does business a little bit differently. They have their different specific areas, their different pain points, different issues with their company. So personalize your approach and try to find out what it is that their business is going through, whether it's industry related, or even if you can get some information on them through press releases. Do your homework, and then address your presentation and your ideas specific to things that you've identified that are going on with that company. And then listen and ask questions. Don't sit there, as I said, and talk about features and benefits. They already know about them. They have the internet. They've checked you out. Otherwise, they wouldn't be taking your call, or you wouldn't be sitting in front of them. But listen and ask some good probing questions. Okay, let's take a look at it. I'm an old school guy. When I started in sales, again, 30-plus years ago, we had payphones on the side of the road. And people actually, when you called someone, you actually left a message with a real-life person. There was no voicemail, and I had a typewriter, no computers. I'm not that old, but that wasn't all that long ago. In the good old days, when prospects needed information, they called you on the phone and said, hey, come on out, bring your brochures, bring your information, let's set up a meeting, love to talk to you. When you made phone contact, as I said, you actually talked to somebody in the company. You could ask them questions. When's the best time to get a hold of Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith? What are some of the things that are going on in your company? You could try to glean some information. Now you can't do that because nobody picks up the phone. They leave voicemail. Access was easier. Now you have caller ID. If they don't recognize your phone number, they're not picking up the phone. And they will never pick up the phone unless you leave a compelling message for why they need to talk to you. There was less competition in the things. There is so much competition. I don't care what it is you're selling, whether it's nuts and bolts or whether it's intellectual property, software solutions. There's lots of competition out there. So it's a very cluttered market, and you're fighting for a chance to step to the front of the line and engage with your prospect. We didn't have the web, as I said, and we didn't have voicemail. So those were the good old days. And again, not all that long ago. Here's some facts, and I follow a group called the Aberdeen Research Group. They do yearly, annual, and they update them semi-annually surveys. They go out to companies and they say, what's going on out there? The #1 reason in sales why the reason for failure and not getting those closes is not being involved with the prospects when they want to buy. As I said earlier, unfortunately, from a salesperson's perspective, people aren't ready to buy something when I'm ready to sell it to them. So you have to stay engaged and you have to be involved in them. As I said earlier, something of value. 60% of the buying steps are completed before the salesperson's ever engaged or called. That's what I mean when I said don't sit there and talk about features and benefits. They already know about your company, your products and services. Hopefully they know about it. Otherwise, you need to work on search engine optimization, and that's not what I do, but that's something that when people are out searching for your services, hopefully you're showing up on the front page. But they already know a lot about you before they ever say, okay, I'll take your phone call, or let's set up a meeting, or I'll talk to you on the phone. Here's an interesting statistics. 80% of the sales close after the 5th attempt, but almost half of representatives are quitting after the 1st attempt. I made a call, he didn't return my call, I didn't make several more attempts, but guess what? They are buying eventually. They're just not buying right now. So you need to be persistent. 87% of leads are never pursued, and this is a crime. You should go to jail if your company is providing leads and your salespeople aren't pursuing them. There's a reason for that.
Money on the table.
Yeah, I mean, there's some reason for that, and I've heard that, quite frankly, marketing and sales needs to be in tune. Marketing develops a lead, they send it to sales, and they say, here you go sell it. Well, that's not a sales-ready lead yet, so sales starts to get jaded when they get all these leads from marketing because they haven't been nurtured to the point where they know enough about your company, you know enough about them, and you're providing it to your salesperson to then take it through the process. They're just hunting. They're insomniacs. They're searching the internet during the night. They're coming in as a lead, but they're not quite frankly a qualified lead. So sales doesn't pursue them because it's a waste of their time. and they become jaded. So marketing and sales has to work collaboratively, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But then 45 to 63% of all those leads do eventually buy, so hang in there. That's the message there. Don't give up. They're just not ready to buy when you're ready to sell them something. From a sales standpoint, here's kind of what sellers are facing these days. You've got prospecting, selling, you're juggling a lot of balls. You're trying to get new business, you're trying to close existing people in the funnel. It's a very fast-paced, very noisy environment that you work in. There's a lot of non-sales tasks, and what I mean by that, filling out expense reports, doing the reports for your boss, organizing your day, just doing those non-sales tasks and engaging with customers. There's a lot more of that because guess what? We don't have sales assistants anymore. We don't have, God forbid, call them secretaries or personal assistants because companies are working with fewer people.
Well, and even if your company is utilizing a platform like Salesforce, like CoolCat does, a large portion of our sales cycle is spent putting information into the CRM, not actually selling. But without doing that legwork, you don't build the foundation in order to follow through and put it and see a sale come in.
Exactly. You have to take time to do that, and then the question is, when do you do it? You want to do it as soon as possible afterwards so you don't forget to do it, and it's fresh in your mind. So you're getting better information on the conversation you had with somebody or the next steps. I work with many people that they have Salesforce, they have ACT, they have Goldmine, they have all the CRM systems, and there's still an issue in the industry. Nobody's used them because salespeople hate to do busy work. I look at it as a benefit because it helps organize my day and it makes me more effective. As I mentioned, there's a pressure to commoditize. Again, we got a lot of competition out there, and everybody likes to, when they make a buying decision, they like to spreadsheet people, as I say. So to put up, what are the things that are important to them, and then you either get a check in that box because you can provide it or you don't. And it's a scorecard. That's kind of how they're making that decision. It's unfortunate, but it's true. There's a lot of fizzled sales for whatever reason. Companies are getting merged. You take them all the way down the path, they're ready to buy, and all of a sudden, whoops, they got bought out. Oh, well, I spent a lot of time, and that didn't happen. Or something happens within the organization, a IT conversion or another product that's being implemented that's more important than yours or your services. You get put on the back burner for God knows how long. You have less support, as I mentioned earlier. There's always higher goals, and if you're a public company, there's a huge, even a private company, but public companies these days, huge pressure to increase income and raise shareholder value. So you're under the gun. The sellers are, it's a great job. You can control your destiny. You can be very successful, make lots of money, but boy, you got a lot of stuff to deal with. All right, let's take a look at today's decision makers. I mentioned I always like to step on the other side of the fence and look at who is my audience and who my prospects and what are they going through on a daily basis, and be sensitive to that. Because I know what I want to accomplish, but quite frankly, are they in tune and are we, on the same page? Today's decision makers, they're getting 3,000 touches a day, and again, it sounds like a lot, but if you start adding it up, voicemails, meetings, conversations, phone calls, whatever, there's a lot of touches going on, and you got 5 right there in that particular meeting, 5 people that individual is touching. They're taking about 17 calls daily, and again, these are Aberdeen Research Group numbers. I'm not sure the last time they updated, but it's pretty consistent. They meet with 4.8 reps weekly, sales reps like us, like you, like salespeople. But from today's decision makers, they're very insecure and the fear of change. I worked in an environment where there was decision by committee. And the term came up that no decision is a good decision because it's a safe decision. No one's going to step up and say, we need to do this because this makes sense. It's going to make us more money. It's going to reduce our expenses for whatever reason. But if they step up and do it and it doesn't work out like it was presented or planned, their head's on the block. Guess what? It gets chopped off. They bring another person in. They're out of a job. So insecurity is really running rampant in today's business environment. Decision makers like to avoid risk. Again, I talked about voicemail. They don't answer their phones anymore unless you leave a compelling message. They do a lot of shopping at their desk, and we'll look at, again, statistically, they know the features and benefits of your company before they even talk to you. And they are seen as, because they hear it, my target market, my target prospect list, my top target list. They don't want to have a target on their back. They want to be seen as a buyer, respected, that they've got something that you can be a solution provider and not a target. So be careful of that, using that word target. Let's look a little bit about separating yourself, the competitive advantage for your interaction. And I have these four terms here. Insight. What I mean by that, our sales teams need to greater understand their customers and their customers' industry trends. I mentioned this earlier. This really goes a long way in crafting your compelling story about how your products and service can resolve your prospects' business challenges. So do your homework. Do the homework on the industry, do the homework on the company before you ever engage them, and be prepared to talk about how you are different and how your products and services can resolve their business challenges. Collaboration. Sales, and I mentioned this earlier, sales and marketing need to work closely together to identify what information and knowledge that you need, at what point does it get turned over to sales. So there needs to be a real collaboration between sales and marketing, because again, we want those leads followed up on, and we don't want the sales group to get tainted. Evaluation, and this gets down to, as I mentioned earlier, ask some good questions, some good relevant questions to better understand your prospect's situation. What are their pain points? What are the issues in their business or their organization? What are some obstacles? And what are their goals? Where are they trying to get? Tell me about your revenue goals, or whatever the case may be in your businesses, from a technology standpoint. Where are you trying to get? And listen to that. Take note of it. Now you can craft your solution more closely to their exact situation. And then impact. You need to stand out from the crowd. As I mentioned, they're getting called on 4.8 reps weekly. You need to be the one that stands out in their mind, and when something comes up, you're the first person that they call. But with all of the above in place, your sales team, and I tend to believe that you will maximize your prospect's experience, and it will help you to win more business. Phone messaging and emails. Here's where we get into how do I get people to take my calls, to return my calls, to return my emails, to engage with me. And to start off with, prepare, prepare, prepare. We already talked about that. Do your homework ahead of time. Do your homework and actually think about, if I actually unbelievably get a hold of this person on the phone and they actually take my call or they call me back, am I ready am I prepared? Have I thought through what I want to do with them, where I want to take them, what I want to say to them? I've had people that will dial the phone and they get so jaded that they're going to get voicemail. Well, they leave a voicemail. Call me back. Well, that's not going to get a call back. Hi, this is Bob Zinsser. Please call me back at 904-472-3706. You haven't given them a reason to call you back. All you're doing is saying, tag, you're it. And that's not going to work today. They're too busy. There's no compelling reason for them to call. Yes.
Yeah, on that, we did have a question from Mark in the audience, and he is asking you, do you see any value in leaving voice messages at all when prospecting or waiting to get a person on the phone to talk to?
I do, because you have to cover all your bases, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as actually you can see the last bullet point on this slide, phone messages and an immediate email, because what you're doing is cover bases. Some people use the phone, some people use email, some people use both, but there are some people that, as we all well know, you could call them on their office line, right then and there. You send them an email and you get a response immediately. Some people just don't like using the phone. In some cases, we should just as well take the phone away from them because they don't use it. But they'll answer an email in a second. So do both.
We have to use a combination of email, voicemail, snail mail, and swag delivered right to the desktop.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, it works. I've tested it. I have people test it, and the objective is to get somebody to respond to you. Do both. And in fact, in some cases, although this is a little intrusive and you got to be careful with it, everybody's got text messages. You might even throw that in there, and I guarantee you that that's going to come on hot and heavy. But right now, the jury's still out. Is that being a little too intrusive, text messaging somebody that you've never talked to?
I would, I would definitely say that's pushing the line. There are contacts that myself and my team have that were established in a traditional way, where we meet them at a show, we get their contact information, we follow up with an email or a phone call, and then, like you said, they're not ready to buy when we're ready to sell to them, but in the constant pursuit of the sale, in the constant, widening of a relationship, because, we don't close deals, we try to open relationships. In doing so, you do get to know people, and you can get personal with them. And from our perspective, that works. And when we find that we are in the relationship phase of the sales cycle, they may not have bought anything from us, but when we do have their cell phone information, we have found that it is okay for us to text them, and they do respond. But you have to have the sense of a relationship first so that that type of communication is welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have no relationship and they don't know who the heck you are or where you're from, if you text them, I guarantee you, I would be willing to bet that you will offend them and they'll never respond. So you might as well take them right off your list, because that's a little too close at this time. Like you said, Seth, once you have somewhat of a relationship, and ask for permission. Hey, if I need to get a hold of you, is it okay to send you a text? Ask them. Be upfront. They say no? Okay, we won't do that. All right, good stuff. Thank you, Seth, for those comments. Those are very, very appropriate. Why should I call you back? You have an objective of the call. I talked about that already a little bit, but have an objective in every interaction you have with a customer. That objective should be to advance the sale, but early on it may be just to gain information, to find out who I need to be talking to early on, just kind of figuring out the maneuver. How do I maneuver within this organization to get where I need to go and who I need to talk to? But then again, your phone messaging and emails, there should be a compelling reason. Why should I call you back, reply to you? If you are using the technique, and I've heard it a million times, and I was guilty of it early on in my career, hi, this is Bob Zinsser. I'm just checking in with you. Give me a call back. There's no reason for them to call back. Yeah, thanks. You just checked in with me. I got your message. Thanks very much. They're not going to call you back. Stop saying that. Don't ever say that. Have a reason, a compelling reason why you want them to call you back. Rehearse and adjust your phone mail messages and your email messages. Try different things to see what's going to start clicking with people and make adjustments. Don't just keep doing it the same way. Rehearse it and adjust it. Do practice, 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 prepare, prepare, prepare. The content of your messages, I said, why should I call you back, is I have an idea. Hi, this is Bob Zinsser at Getting the Game Southeast. John, I have an idea for you that I'd really like to talk to you about, and I think it would have some application to your business. Can you please give me a call back? I really look forward to hearing from you. I'm available anytime today, 904-472-3706. Again, Bob Zinsser. Repeat the number, 904-472-3706. Because if they're writing it down, if they haven't blown you off already, give them a second chance to write down the right number. Real simple thing, but I'm telling you, it works. And then lastly, your phone message, when I just left that message, then I'm going to immediately send an email, and in the subject line it says, left you a voicemail message. Hi, John, this is Bob Zinsser, and you're saying the exact same thing in an email message that you did in a phone message, and hopefully it's real good. You're going to get a response from the people. Again, I've seen this work in real life. It does work, but that just gets down to what's the best way to communicate with you. Okay, consider this. How's your message landing? Is it valued? Is it compelling? We talked a little bit about it. If it's not, make an adjustment, but be very clear on your offer and how it has helped others. Again, give some examples. I have an idea that I've talked to so-and-so, maybe even as brash as saying, you know, I dealt with a competitor of yours, and it really helped them out in this area. I hope it can help for you too. Again, appropriateness of that, but give specific examples, not just, hi, this is Bob Zinsser, I'm just checking in with you, give me a call back. going to get you nowhere. And then measure results and adjust your approach. I actually do the good old-fashioned tick sheet every week, and I compile it for the week, and I compile it for campaigns that I do with people and my clients that say, this was the message I was delivering. How many calls did I make? How many contacts did I make? Did I get through to the person? Did they call me back? Did I get an appointment? Did I get a chance to provide a proposal? Did I get a chance to schedule a demonstration? Did I get a sale? Measure it. And you have to, and we all know that in sales and in marketing, you got to measure things to see where you're going. All right, I think we have another poll question to break things up a little bit.
All right, I will do that, sir. Let me just pull up the poll question here, and we've got, I believe this is it. That's the correct one, Bob?
Yes.
Okay. So if everyone in the audience could just keep taking time to vote on this, give us a little bit more to talk about. Also, on the same thing, as I said, I run the MSP Business Management website, and kind of what you were just talking about there, Bob, was we had a gentleman by the name of Richard Tubb who runs a service, a managed service provider over here in the UK. He writes some articles for us. He wrote this interesting one that I'll send around now, and it's about doing a lead generation scorecard. Kind of the same thing, like a good way to keep a track of what you're doing with your time, you know, how many contacts you're making, you know, things of that nature. Like
exactly.
You said, you've got to measure it. So I'll put that link up there for everybody to take a look at that there now. So we've got everybody still voting along here. So as I said, yeah, April, if you just joined us halfway through, we are recording the webinar. It'll be available. You'll get a link. You check your email box for a link from the GoToMeeting software that'll tell you where you can download this. And you can watch the video, you can download the presentation, and you can also download the MP3 as a podcast, so you can listen to it on the go here. All right, thanks for voting, everybody. I'll go ahead and share that and give you some talking points there. Okay, there you go. So we had, what is the most important thing to accomplish in the first contact with a prospect? Leading was, oh, no of the above. That was my typo on my side. That was 55%. We had telling them about my company and myself was 25%. 18% presenting product features and benefits, and closing the sale was 2%. So what are your feelings about this, Seth and Bob? What do you guys think about that? So I guess people in the audience had a different idea of what they. If you guys had something else that you think you did first, go ahead and put that into the chat interface. I'll pass it along to these guys here. Let me go ahead and have to close that again now. Just
again, this is kind of a trick question on my part. Actually, none of the above should be 100%. Quite frankly, as I said earlier, it was kind of a hint. Presenting products and features, they already know what you're, unless they haven't found you on the internet yet and done their research. They already know about your products and your features and benefits. You can spend some time to gain some credibility and you know, establish some, you know what you're talking about by telling them about your company yourself, but it's not the most important thing. That's a minimal part. That should be the small. You should be asking questions and diving in and presenting and showing them that you did your homework on their company and really diving into the issues at hand. Closing the sale, hey, you know, if it's the first call, yeah, that could happen in some cases, but that's very rare, because especially if they've never laid eyes on you before, unless you're in water softener sales maybe. Where they sit at your kitchen table and test your water and say, okay, I got a deal for you.
Thanks, everyone. I'll go ahead and hide that poll and turn things back over to you. All right. There you go.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for your responses. All right. Let's take a look at the dynamics of a sale. And I mentioned this earlier and just previously. There's some dynamics going on in a sales call, and early in my career, probably 20 years ago, I worked for a manager, and we really started to analyze what's going on in the sales call. But this is some of the dynamics that should be occurring, is that you should be gaining trust, and we all know this is at the foundation of everything. If I don't trust you, I'm not going to, A, open up to you and really tell you what my issues are, or B, I probably won't even invite you back for a second contact if you're, fortunate enough to be sitting in front of somebody. You should be establishing credibility. I know what I'm talking about. I'm an expert in my business, and you display this through several things. To be talking about how you have been in other similar situations or how you've been in this industry, and give examples of how you've solved other people's issues, pain points, challenges. Certainly, as I mentioned, display a level of expertise. And some of this even comes down to the way that you present yourself and your body language. I mean, there's a lot of subtle things that are going on in that face-to-face sales call. Some of these are transferable also in a phone conversation, in a networking event, and as I mentioned earlier, and even in that inbound call that you get maybe through a web lead. Reliability. They need to know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And again, those subtle things is, if you have an appointment with someone or you tell someone you're going to call them at 9 a.m., you are calling them at 8:59, or you're showing up at 8:59 or 8:55 in a personal sales call. Follow through what you say you're going to do, show up on time, be prepared, and just, again, the follow-through is just so critical because there's too much competition out there. We talked about that earlier. They got choices. So if you don't fail on those little things, you're not going to get a second chance. And then fifth is a kind of a new dynamic that has been introduced since I started with this work. It's called intimacy. No, it's not holding hands, and it's not kumbaya, but it's connecting on those personal levels, as I said earlier. That's so important because it is still, we're dealing person to person. At least we're still dealing person to person. Who knows in the future? But there has to be a level of intimacy that they're comfortable with the relationship and you've connected on some things. And again, all of these are not linear. They're all happening at different stages, but certainly that trust is a big one. Okay, here's the sales call. All sales calls, we're going to move into a different area. How do I keep in front of and stay in front of my prospects? So you attempt to contact with a person, however that is. Three things result. They either say, yes, good, got a sale, or yes, I'll meet with you, or yes, I'm ready to buy. They either say no or hell no, sorry, but sometimes they say not interested, go away, I don't need your product or service, I don't like you, and whatever the case may be. And then thirdly is wait. I'm not ready right now, stay in touch, send me some information, I got some other things going on, I'm just not ready right now. So stay in touch. So how do we stay in touch? It's called top-of-mind awareness, and that is key. Sales is about maintaining relationships, and as many as you can, but it's not making the most contacts. That's not what that's going to do. You need to maintain those relationships, and how do you do that over a period of time? As I mentioned in the introduction, sometimes it takes months and sometimes years for a sale to happen. Well, you got to hang in there. You don't want to give up, but you have to have some type of a system, a sales process, and some material to keep top-of-mind awareness with that customer. And what is that? I use it on a daily basis. I read an article. I read a lot of things. There's a lot of information out there, e-newsletters in industry, or even specifically on a customer or a prospect. I saw one the other day, one of my prospects for one of my clients, one of their scrap yards, of all things, was awarded this prestigious award. And I wasn't sure that my prospect, who I'm trying to get in front of, had seen this. It took 2 seconds. I sent the link and said, not sure you saw this, Lisa. I just wanted to pass this along. Congratulations on a great accomplishment and a great award. Guess what? She called me back, said, where did you get this? I want to spread it. I made her look good. She's spreading it throughout the company. And now I have a prospect who, if I pick up the phone and call her, she will return my call or take my call every time. It took 2 seconds. That's top-of-mind awareness. It had nothing to do with, are you ready to buy yet? But it just had to do with, hey, I'm looking out for you. I just wanted to pass this along. I have a relationship with her. It's about regular communication, top-of-mind awareness. Again, but communication, and it's with everybody. It's with your suspects to turn them into prospects. It's with prospects to turn them into customers. And it also is with customers. Stay in touch with your present customers, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. What are you doing in the world of referrals with your current customers? That's an important and sometimes, a lot of times, overlooked source of business. But it's a persistent process. It's not every week. It's not every day, God forbid. It may be every other week. It may be once a month, whatever is appropriate. But it's about creating dialogues with people, again, getting their attention. And it's not necessarily saying, are you ready to buy yet? Are you ready to buy yet? When can we close this sale? I would caution you about doing that, because now you're just a thorn in their side, who's like that little pesky dog that just keeps jumping around. They're going to ignore you. You want to provide things keeping top-of-mind awareness with you and your organization. And it can be features and benefits of your product, that you just came out with a new release of something, or something happened in the industry that you wanted to make them aware of, or it could be about them, or it could be about their competitors. So it's, again, look for things that you can pass on to your prospects, suspects, and customers that keep you in front of them. And this allows you to demonstrate your value. You're more than just going to sell them a solution. You're going to be looking out for them and passing along information. Now you're looked at in a different light. You've now differentiated yourself with your prospects, suspects, and customers. And we talked about a sales process. Why a process? Well, it keeps you focused. It lets you know where you are with that customer. And early in my career, I worked under a call system. Call 1 meant it had specific things that were to be accomplished in call 1. Call 2 was specific things, and call 3 was specific. My boss said to me, where are you with ABC Corporation? I could say, well, I'm in call 1. We knew exactly what that meant, where I was with that prospect. I had focus. He had focus. I didn't have to listen to me say, man, we're going to close this thing in 30 days. No, that's not the case. I'm in call 1. You know exactly where I am with that person. So he knew where I was in the pipeline with my customers. And it really helps you focus. It helps you understand where your business is. In one of my clients, we set this up because there's a lot of work to be done when we close an account. There's hardware that needs to be ordered. There's software installation. There's training that needs to be scheduled. They want to know where they are in the waterfall. How big is that wave coming at me? And if we got 10 in call 3 and they're ready to close in the next 20 days, man, we got to button up. We're going to have a load of business coming in versus we have 5. Okay, maybe we can go to lunch today. Have objectives in each call. So your objective in call 1 is to get them to call 2. How are you going to do that? What do you need to do along that way? So define it. Take some time to define it. And as I said, it just allows you to know where you are with your prospect. Scott, do we have another quick poll? And we're just about finished up here.
Yes, we do. We've got another one here. Let me just launch this here, everyone. Thank you. If you'll take just a few minutes or a few seconds to vote in that poll. Do you measure your sales results and or performance? That's it. So everybody's voting away. I wish I had some kind of like Jeopardy music or something to play while these were.
There you go.
While everybody was voting. That's what we need to work on next time. I used to have singing. I used to have the speakers just kind of set up right next to this so we could. Play some Kraftwerk or something. Okay, so we've got lots of people voting right now. As I said, we are recording this. You'll get an email from your GoToMeeting software. I've also posted a couple of links to some helpful articles over on MSP Business Management website. You might want to take a look. We're also on Twitter. We're at MSP Bizman, and you can find us on Facebook as well. We kind of keep catch up. We can just kind of like publish articles about sales, marketing, kind of stuff that these guys are talking about over here today. All right, thank you for voting, everyone. I'll go ahead and share this one. There we go. Oh, there we go. Do you measure your sales results performance? 58% said yes, 27% said no, 15% said they never thought about it. Gentlemen, what are your feelings on some of these?
Well, you got to know what you're doing. If you're not measuring it, how do you know that you're doing it correctly or well?
Yeah, I mean, it lets you know where you are, how high, do I have room for improvement in my sales results, and always trying to better that number, because that number is going to drive your revenue.
Exactly, especially as far as marketing things are concerned, with like, Google Analytics, let's say, for a website or something, it's never really been easier to try and see where things are coming from, where your leads are coming from.
And it doesn't have to be complicated or involved or, you know, this monotonous. It's just real simple. You know, how many sales calls, how many proposals did I put out last month, how many closed? You can measure anything. I had an organization come to me, one of my first contracts, that said, my salespeople aren't getting appointments, how can you help? That was the entire conversation. I said, well, let me observe. So we started measuring the things that were important to them, because we know if we got appointments, those appointments would lead to hopefully proposals, and we measured that too, and then those proposals would lead to closed sales. I can tell you that revenue within a 4-month period of time after we started measuring things, it shot up 31%. And that was over the holidays in 2011 in an economy, at least here in the United States, that was abysmal. And it was advertising sales, which no one was spending money on advertising. They didn't have money. So it can be done, but you got to measure to drive results.
All right, excellent. I'll go ahead and hide that, and then there you go. You're back in charge, Robert.
All right. Well, we just got a few more things to share with you. It's not the people, it's the process. This actually comes from a quote from a gentleman that I know out in Los Angeles, and he's always saying this. It's not the people, that you just got to put them in a process. Some statistics, again, Aberdeen Research Group. A lot of percentage of deals don't close as expected, and why is that? Because we really don't know where they are. We haven't said, okay, we got this many in call 3. We just kind of keep calling on them, and hopefully they say yes. We set up expectations. We're not real with ourselves. I've actually seen people, sales reps that have worked with me and have reported to me, they come out, and I've done it myself. You come out of that first sales call and you go, man, that really felt good. I clicked with that person. We're going to get this business. Man, I'm going to close this deal in 30 days. But you met them for the first time. You haven't taken the time to understand their business. You set yourself up for failure. Your boss is writing that down. Bob's going to have a close in 30 days of $500,000. But I don't have a process that I'm working in, and I haven't covered those steps, which are critically important. And the second step, in my mind, is to understand everything you can about that prospect and that organization so that you can then take them to the third step, which is proposal and a close. 85% of companies don't have a formal process, so we only had 50. There's people, again, are just still out there just calling on people and just loading as many as they can in the funnel, not sure where they are or when they're going to close. A lot of salespeople are missing quota these days, and again, if you have a formal process, you know where you are and you can make adjustments and fix it. But if you don't know where you are, you don't know what to fix. And if processes are implemented, that certainly can result in some more revenue dollars for everybody. All right, here's just some real finish-up facts. This is a slide that I enjoy. But as I said before, I can't help you in this respect. But if your business, your services are not showing up on the internet, you're missing opportunities. You're not getting invited to the party because, as we said earlier, 60% of the buying process is being done by your prospect without you knowing about it before they even contact you. So you better be out there and showing up. So new purchases are starting on the web, and that number is increasing. And that's both in business, but certainly personally, I would suggest that new purchases are starting on the web probably in the 99% business, because no one's going to the yellow pages anymore. They keep delivering it to my front door. I don't understand that. All right, referrals. We talked a little bit about that. Make sure you're asking for them. Here's some stats on cold calls. It has a 98% failure rate. So why would you do something and only get you a 2% success rate? That, to me, is a waste of time. In some businesses, as I said, it's appropriate, but it's still tough. If that's the business you're in, God love you, but you're only getting about a 2% success rate. And again, this is Aberdeen Research Group. Referrals lead to 70 to 90% close rate. And I don't have to tell you that. People talk good about you and your products and services. They tell somebody, they're pretty warmed up. With your referrals, top of mind awareness, again, as I mentioned, keep your customers in tune to what's going on with you and ask for referrals. But more importantly for referrals, identify what your ideal client looks like. Don't just look for referrals for the sake of having someone to talk to. Tell your customers and your people that you know, this is exactly what I'm looking for. This is an ideal client of mine, whether it's revenue-based, number of people, situation, size, whatever the case may be, and then work your database of referrals. Work them as you would your prospects and certainly your customers. So spend some time on that, because that can reap you some good benefits versus just cold calling or just out and about running all over the place. All right, some takeaways. Hopefully, what will you do differently tomorrow? What were some of the ideas and information you'd like more on? And what are some ideas that you gained from today? And we're not going to do a poll question, but I just want you to consider this. Hopefully, you're going to pick up one, if not a few, of the ideas presented here today. I just wanted to conclude with saying I really hope that your time spent, that you've got some good information out of here. I sparked some ideas, and maybe you'll change some things. But again, I'm located here in Jacksonville, Florida. Here's my contact information. And I want to thank Scott and Seth for setting this up and allowing me to speak with you today.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Bob. Seth, thanks a lot for being here. You want to tell anything, the audience, anything about your business and what you have to offer?
Well, as you know, we're a managed service provider. We're a cloud security provider. We do licensing, co-location, information security, off-site backup, all from our triple geographically redundant infrastructure that stretches the entire span of the East Coast of the United States. If there's ever any way for me to be a resource, even if it's just to answer a technical or a sales question, I hope everyone will feel free to contact me. It's my pleasure to serve as a resource. And
how can people get a hold of you?
Best way to contact me is either telephone or email. The telephone number here is toll-free, 877-888-1867, and I'm at extension number 5. That telephone number, once again, is 877-888-1867. I hide over at extension number 5. And my email address, believe it or not, is SOXHAN as in Nancy, DLER, first letter of my first name, my entire last name, which affords me the opportunity to be Soxhandler at COOLCATINC.com. I'm on LinkedIn and easily found.
All right, Soxhandler. Yeah, I just never realized that. Okay, so let's take a few questions, guys, before we wrap up here. Thank you, everyone, for staying around here. So we'll start with Skylar had a question here. He's one of our regulars, and he had a question. Is it worth trying to offer something like, can I take you to lunch as part of the effort to get someone to commit? What are your thoughts on that, James?
Well, I always like
to
break bread. I always like to break bread with people. It gives me an opportunity to get out of the confines and sometimes the restrictions that an office environment imposes. And if they accept, it's not just, a free lunch for them, but an opportunity to break bread with them and to, kind of get to know them outside of the confines of the office, maybe make a personal connection. I've found spending time with people outside of the office is a good way to start and build relationships, because ultimately, I said it before, I'll say it again, the success that we have had is not in closing deals, but in opening relationships.
I would agree. That's an excellent point, Seth, and I agree with that. Everything you said there. It gets them out of their environment, the distractions. Don't be surprised, though, if it's early in the relationship and they haven't really decided whether they're going to spend time with you, because it's tough to get out of the office these days. I see a lot of people eating lunch at their desk, if they eat at all, or takes 15 minutes like myself. I don't go on hour-long lunches and do a lot of that. I do with my clients and with my clients' prospects, but in my experience, it's tough to get people out of the office. But if you get someone that says, yes, I'd like to go to lunch with you, you should feel that you've done a good job so far, because now they're willing to spend some time with you out of the office. And don't make it too heavy at lunch. Have an objective, but you're really there, as Seth said, to develop and to strengthen that relationship, because that's what it's going to come down to. That's your opportunity to do that. But you also want to talk a little bit of business, but not too heavy.
No, Bob's absolutely right. And you know, to kind of bring things back to a lot of what Bob has said throughout the webinar, you know, those are the granular, specific points of success that we have utilized to achieve a book of 725 active clients. So I have to, you know, I'd be happy to answer any questions and be a resource for anyone at any time. But, you know, when it comes to the particulars of how to do sales, Bob's the man. Bob's got the process down to the point that, you know, I think the man should write a book. I would buy it.
Don't say that. I've thought about it, but man, I'll tell you what, that's when I got nothing else to do.
Well, fortunately, I know there's a lot of people who are looking for the exact kind of information that you have to provide. If I had known you a decade ago, 14 years ago, when I started down this path, it certainly would have solved a lot of problems that I had to figure out on my own and shorten my sales cycle. And hey, who knows, maybe now I'd have 1,400, not 700 clients in my book.
There you go. You'd be sitting on an island sipping Mai Tais.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, let's see. Carlos had a couple questions here. He, first of all, is wanting to know, when you're cold calling, how would you recommend to get the prospect's interest? And then kind of along the same lines, he's asking, what do you think is important to include in a phone message or an email?
Cold calling, I guess I'll step up and then take this one first. I did some actual mirroring joint sales calls with a client of mine that does advertising sales. They walk into a restaurant and engage the maitre d', who is, for all intents and purposes, the gatekeeper, but it's not their job. You have to be different. You have to, I think, in a cold call situation, what I have seen that works well is, yeah, if you get a chance to get in touch with the person, what are you trying to accomplish on the cold call? Find out who it is that I need to really talk to, because I've never been here before, or am I there to close a sale, or somewhere in between? In most cases, I think you're on a fact-finding mission. Who is it that I need to talk with? But I think you need to be humble, because you've just walked in unannounced and you're asking to take some time of somebody that doesn't know you and you've never met before. So you need to be a little humble and say, you know, I realize I've never met so-and-so before. I'm not sure if that's the right person I need to talk to. Is he or she available just to spend a minute, just to introduce myself so we can open a line of communication to talk about, to see if I can help your business with my products or services?
Sorry about that. All right, excellent. Let's see. We've got time for just one more here. I want to get to, let's see, Tim was wanting to know, besides referrals, what would you suggest to get good leads to avoid cold calling?
Networking.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like growing a garden. You gotta put the time. If you want to be able to pick the fruit, you got to be able to put the time in to grow the tree.
Yep.
And you know, it really does. Bob's absolutely right. It always comes down to networking, because how else do you get to the beginning phase of a relationship with anyone? You know, either in business or socially. You know, the same principles apply. You have to network. You have to get to know people. You have to get yourself out there. If they're not coming to you, you have to bring it to them. And, you know, the beginning of that, the beginning of the sales process has to start with marketing. If they don't know you're there, how are they going to find you? And then once they find you, now you have a compelling reason to start down the sales process.
Yeah. Then that networking needs to be very specific. I would suggest that you find, as I call them, co-marketing partners, people that are running in the same markets that you're running into, but they're not competing with you. They're providing complementary services. Seek those people out, introduce yourself, and position it as, how can I help you and how can you help me? You're in there talking to people. You may hear somebody say, geez, I'm really not happy with my sales force. I just had breakfast this morning with a paycheck provider, payroll company. They're talking to the owners of the companies, and they're asking questions. How's business? Oh, it's terrible. Well, why is it terrible? Well, those salespeople I have just can't meet their quota. Guess what? I have someone that can help you. Call Bob Zinsser.
Yep, there you go. And that's let's end this on this one last thing from both you gentlemen. This is from Rodney, and he's asking, can you recommend a good sales analysis tool?
I'm not sure where the root of that, a sales analysis tool, that could mean a lot of different things. To measure your performance, I used a tool years ago, and I can refer a company. See if Rodney can provide you with his email address, and I'll send him the information if I think that's what he's asking. It's an online tool that you go in and set yourself goals, and you say, I want to make 15 new contacts this week. I want to close 2 new sales. I want to do this. I want to do that. There's complete flexibility. And then each week they report out, where are you in that? And it comes to you automatically on Monday morning. Where are you with that based on your activity last week? And they will tell you you're either above plan or below plan. Real simple tool.
Yeah, so for myself with Cool Cat Inc., you know, for us, the best measuring and reporting tool is our CRM. Because we use Salesforce and we put everything in there, and Salesforce tracks the progression of opportunities, we utilize that reporting so that we know where we're at. So, and we use that. I use that reporting for future financial projections, so that I know, well, based on what's happening next quarter, the quarter after, now I know what my budget could be for hardware replacement in the data center, let's say. You know, and again, something like Salesforce, you know, which group addition for 5 users or 4 or 5 users is like $500 a year. If you're not using anything, that's a great way to start, because everything that you need is kind of built into there, you know, and the reporting is huge.
Yeah, Salesforce, I'm using it with one of my clients has it, and I'm logged in. I have a seat license, and I've used them all, but that is by far the most dynamic out there. There's just so many things you can do with it. So,
and for $500 a year, it's not a huge financial barrier for getting started. Even if, you know, even for just group addition, if you're not going to use all 5 seats, maybe there's only 3 of you. You know, for $500 a year for 3 salespeople to be able to use Salesforce and to be able to get the reporting out of it, I think that you'll find that to be a tremendous resource and insight into your own sales process and procedure.
Excellent. Well put, gentlemen. And, well, that's about all the time we've got here. We had a few unanswered questions, gentlemen, and I will pass. I know Carlos had quite a few. I'll pass Carlos's and everyone else's information onto Bob and Seth, and they can get back to you guys and answer anything that you might have. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming out here today.
My pleasure.
As always, a pleasure.
All right. If you guys, we got another webinar coming up next month, Metrics That Matter with Autotasks. So you can sign up at our website, mspbusinessmanagement.com. Right. I'll be there, same time, same bat time, different bat month. But thank you, everyone. Watch your email inbox for the link to the presentation. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks, Bob and Seth. We'll see you next time.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye now.